All right, y'all. Let's learn about the M word. What do you think? Everybody see the mold on those chicken nuggets? All right. It's certainly there. Yeah. The goal for today is just to bring awareness to you so you can be better equipped to handle conversations with your buyers or with your sellers, and sometimes with contractors regarding mold. My name is Justin. I own a home inspection business here in Asheville. We service all of Western North Carolina. Home Inspection Collective is the name of our company. So why did you choose to attend this class today? Besides food. Okay. You're curious about, okay. What about it?
Because it's always a thing. So it's like, but yeah, the more you know about it, the more we can educate our clients and know when we should be alarmed and when it's an okay type of mold.
Is there an okay type of mold?
Yeah, kind of.
Like what?
Mold that's everyone. Yeah.
What is it?
Penicillin.
Penicillin? There you go.
Blue cheese.
Yeah, blue cheese is an excellent mold.
Those that are in the anger.
Yeah. Anyone else?
We're in property management, so
Ooh.
our interest is, not tenants that are throwing what we call the mold card.
Does that happen often?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
I'm curious about that in HVAC systems on the renter level. I'm curious about like mold that's found in HVAC or heating systems on the renter level, on the property management side. Responsibility.
Explain how that conversation takes place between your team and a tenant.
Yeah, there's a couple of different scenarios. One is people wanting to see a property and walk in and smell it because they can tell as soon as they walk in
Yeah.
if there's mold.
They're a natural mold detector. Yeah.
But that's fine, because that's at the point at which they can either, rent the house or not, so that's not really an issue.
Yeah.
But the bigger, or probably the 99% of the time, it's somebody who's saying that they're experiencing health issues and they think there's mold in the house, or they see something and they say, oh, that's black mold, and, this house isn't safe, and, and they want out of their lease. So, it's just how we navigate that, and as she said, the more you know, the better.
Yeah.
And we've had lots of experience with it, but you can never have too much. It was always good. We've got one going right now that we're kind of trying to decide what we're gonna do from here. And so, yeah, it's just always an ongoing thing.
So do you all have a policy set in place that what the steps are when you get that phone call?
We do,
Okay.
usually, yes. It's not hard and fast because we do take it on a case by case basis, and kind of it depends a little bit on what the situation is. But we do. I mean, we don't ever not do anything.
Sure.
It's just, the level of what we do, when, and how quick. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to kind of learn more about today is, if there is ever a situation where doing testing yourself is even an option or worth doing, or whether, do you just skip that step and go straight to having a professional test done and that sort of thing. So,
yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts on doing self-testing versus professional testing? Have you had a buyer or seller that just want to do their own test to determine the presence or absence of mold?
I have had a buyer who said she would get her test off of Amazon.
Okay.
Which I didn't know about.
Yeah.
But I don't know the difference between that and a professional test in terms of the results, or
Yeah.
you get what you pay for kind of thing.
Yeah. Hey, Buck. Hey, second day in a row, man.
Just following you in the food around.
Well, it's the same thing as yesterday. It was yesterday, so I'm like, we'll do it again.
I didn't know we were talking.
Doesn't matter, there's food over
We had lunch, yeah. We had lunch yesterday together. So the company that does you can purchase your own testing kits. The laboratory that does the testing is Pro Labs, and that is a laboratory that most professionals use. So so I would say that if someone is looking to do their own test, that could be an option for them. But when you start getting into dealing with someone else's health, I don't know if that puts more liability on you or them. I'm not an attorney. There is one in the room that may shed some insight into that. I mean, the test is done by a certified laboratory, but was the testing done correctly? That we don't know. Yeah, so the legality of it, it would be hard to, yeah, it would be hard to navigate for sure. But we will help you with some tools to maybe start building a process for that. Because it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't know that already. All right, so let's identify what is mold. So we talked about blue cheese already. But mold, it's a type of fungus that thrives in damp, warm, and humid environments. It's often found behind walls, under carpet, in HVAC systems also. So you mentioned that as well. Sometimes we can't see it. Sometimes it is visible. The most common indoor molds that we find are, let's have someone try the first one. What's the first mold? Starts with a C. Someone try it. Okay. Cladosporium. What about the next one? Penicillium. Okay, the next one. Okay. And the ugly one, the black mold. There you go. There's so many different ways to pronounce that. It's like Leicester, Leicester, you know. But everyone associates it being, if they see a black fungus or mold, they automatically assume that it is black mold. It's also green. It also comes in green. So it's not just black. So why does that matter in real estate or property management? It kills deals. Mold is scary. But I'm going to give you some tools to not scare your clients. But it can kill deals. It can be costly to mitigate. So would you like to tell me your story that you were telling me before we met? Or before we started, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. It's all about timing. Yeah.
I had a buyer last summer, and she was getting a small condo in Black Rock, next to a pond, determined to have mold. This was a short-term rental opportunity for her. We had 3 different mold inspections come and do some kind of an estimate, and the range is from like 700 to repair it to 2,500. She went with the cheaper route. That did not include taking the drop-down ceiling that's been there since the 50s and looking behind, you know, in the rafters or whatever to see if, because the shower in the unit ahead had, you know, leaked, and at one time, we don't know if that was the cause of mold. So that was the biggest mystery, is where's the mold coming from. When they did the mold test outside, it was very high, as it was inside, you know, but it's near a humid, damp lake, and the whole condo association, I mean, these were built, I think, in the 50s. So they're pretty old, and they've had a lot of turnover in them, so maybe people don't take care of them. They also thought there'd be mold in the window air conditioning unit that she could replace. But it was really about, is it in the walls? And one company was going to scrub everything down, spray it with some kind of solution, the 2-day process, hazmat, a lot of steps. She didn't go with that one, but my question would have been, if it were me, would I get what I paid for and be more assured that that was good, or was I being taken advantage of because maybe that's a bunch of gooey,
Yeah.
but that doesn't actually treat the mold. So I felt not very much of an expert of it, which is why I came today.
Yeah. So yeah, the cost can vary. If there are any cat lovers in this group, my apologies, but there is a saying, there's 20 ways to skin a cat. There's so many different ways to mitigate mold. And it comes with different costs. So it's based on experience, what the cause is, and how widespread some of that growth can be. But it can be costly to mitigate, and it can certainly delay a closing. And buyer confidence. You have a buyer that is interested in a property, and now it's a known fact there's mold in the house. They're probably not going to be very confident with moving forward with that house, or it's always going to be in the back of their mind. But mold is not just a health issue, it's a financial and a legal one as well. So what are your legal and ethical duties regarding your RPD on mold? Should mold be listed on your RPD?
But you have to be
Are you?
a certified mold expert to call it mold.
Okay.
So I would say no, because we're not mold experts.
So we have a no and we have a yes.
Yeah, fungal growth, I would say yes, should be listed, but mold
Okay.
specifically.
Well, also, that's the opinion of the person filling it out.
Right,
So the seller can say, I don't have mold, and they do.
No representation, right? We like that box.
Yeah.
But you as an agent, do you have a duty to report that on the RPD?
Depends. It's always the answer is it depends.
We
It
don't
depends?
allow-
We don't fill out the RPD.
Yeah, the seller does.
You can have a spot, literally a spot smaller than a penny up on the shower next to the door, or you could have like an entire wall that's black.
Yeah,
I think it depends on the situation.
okay. So it could be situational, right? So North Carolina, there's no specific statute requiring the disclosure of all mold in a residential property. Sellers are obligated to disclose any material facts about the property, which can include mold if it's considered a significant issue affecting the property value or its use. You guys agree with that? Okay. So here are some pretty obvious signs of mold. Water stains, discoloration. So we see that on exterior walls. We see that on interior ceilings, specifically under bathrooms. And also, the second floor ceilings are areas that you would want to be looking for any stains. So mold needs three things to grow. It needs something to eat. It has to have a food source. Drywall is a food source. Wood is a food source. Chicken nuggets is a food source. Okay, it needs something to eat. The other thing that it needs is oxygen. We can't eliminate oxygen from anything that we do. And the last thing that it needs is moisture. So that is the one thing that can be managed. So mold can grow within 24 to 48 hours of any water event. Have we recently had a water event here in Asheville? Yes. I still see homes with tarps on it. Passed one today. Other indications of mold or water issues: peeling paint, peeling wallpaper, and then we just have visible fungal growth. Home inspectors are great. We get very creative on how we say mold, fungal growth, organic growth. Because we have to be careful on how we label certain things regarding mold and fungal growth. The health impacts: respiratory health in children and the elderly, immune compromised clients, and those with asthma or allergies. So this is some of those discovery questions that you're asking your client when looking for a home or scheduling a home inspection. Do you have a history of allergies? Do you have a known history of any negative reactions to mold? Those are things you should be asking your clients on the buyer side, because that's going to lead you to the next thing. When it is time to schedule a home inspection, we certainly need to align ourselves with someone that can do a mold analysis for you. So just put that in. How many bedrooms do you want? Are you allergic to mold? All right, in terms of our home inspections, so we have a general exclusion. Home inspectors are not required to report on the presence or absence of mold. You surprised to see that or hear that?
Yeah.
Do home inspectors report on it?
Yeah.
I hope so. But we're not required to do so. Now, we are required to report on conditions that are conducive to mold. So a plumbing leak is conducive to mold. So we're going to report on plumbing leaks. We're going to report on, if there's a leak at the refrigerator or roofing leak. And so what our inspectors do is once we identify that there is a water issue, now we're looking for mold, because that's important to our clients and that's important to our agents as well. But we are not required to report on it. All right, so here is Inspector Sean in a crawl space. This is his first week training on the job. But the mold inspection is a visual inspection. Now, in this picture, you can see there's a few things going on. In his right hand, he has a moisture meter. So the moisture that we want to see in a crawl space is under 18%. Once we get above 18%, again, that is going to be conducive to mold growth. And so as part of our process, we want to check those moisture levels in a crawl space to determine if there is a venting issue or not. But why we're checking the moisture levels is you can see dirt. So right there where he's kneeling down, he's kneeling on dirt. In the back of the picture, you can see a vapor barrier or moisture barrier. That is to prevent moisture from getting into the crawl space, which again, it's just conducive to mold. So now the challenge that we have with getting moisture readings is if we check the moisture today, it's going to be elevated because we're in the time of the season. It's more humid than it is in December. And so we want to verify what the moisture levels are at the time of the inspection. If we see that it's elevated, we would make recommendation to have someone come out to determine what's causing it and what the course of action is going to be. In this particular case, it was elevated, and so it just needed a new vapor barrier. That vapor barrier is just to prevent all that moisture from coming up from the earth. So a visual inspection. We're not going to move anything. We're not going to move large pieces of furniture to get under windows, looking for mold. So all the readily accessible areas, we're going to be looking for mold. But again, we're more concerned with what the cause is, and that's the moisture. So we want to identify what the moisture issues are. The next type of testing is air sampling. So this is a little canister, and I'll explain. I'm going to show you a report here in a little bit how this process works. So there's a little vacuum, and we put this canister on top of it, and we plug it in, and it runs for 15 minutes. So this is an air sample. So it's forcing air into this little container, and then these are sent to a laboratory again in Florida for testing. Now we want every house is going to have mold. Every single house is going to have mold, but we want to determine what the levels are and what types of mold are in the house. So we have to have a base or a control sample. So where do you think we would get a base or a control sample? Outside. I was talking with an agent the other day, and they got a mold report. There was no control sample. It was only inside samples. So there's no way to really determine if there's an issue or not. The house showed that it had mold because it has mold, right? So the steps are, we take a sample outside, and it's pulling all the mold from the trees and the dirt, from your neighbor's dog. And then we take samples inside of the house. And so we want to identify areas that, again, would be conducive to mold. So if there's a basement without a window, there's no ventilation, that would be an area that we would want to pull an air sample. If we know that there was a plumbing leak or roofing leak in a living room, we're going to want to pull a sample from a living room. Sometimes if there's no indications of moisture at all, we'll still pull samples in various different locations of the house. And then we send it to a laboratory, and then they send us a full report that identifies the spore count and what types of mold were found in the house. Any questions about that? About the sampling part? And what's really cool about the type of equipment, and specifically with ProLabs, we can actually pull samples from wall cavities. Now, why would we want to pull an air sample from a wall cavity? Potentially, yeah.
Seepage from outside, grading and gutters.
There you go. Do you think an air sample that comes back high with mold spores could be an indication of a hidden problem?
Probably didn't.
Yeah. Have you been to my CE class? Okay. So we did inspections in Biltmore Forest. They had a type of stucco that is problematic. And so we made a recommendation to pull some air samples from exterior wall cavities. So we remove a plate cover, we have a hose, we shove it in the wall cavity. Now we're sucking air from this wall cavity. There was no indications of a water issue in this house at all. And it came back positive with high spore counts, which meant water is penetrating the outside wall. So even though there's no indications of water, no indications of mold, it could be hidden within different parts of the house that are not visible. So we can use the air sampling to determine if there is an issue or is not an issue.
I've got a quick question.
Hit me.
A friend of mine who's also a realtor found mold behind her tile when she moved in. And she did, there was something that alerted her to it, but until they pulled the tile out of the shower, they was all black. Oh, how can we test for that in the bathroom?
We could, during a home inspection, we could remove all the tile.
No. So there's no way
That's
to
it.
really
Mm-mm.
to know that, because the lady, she said, that lived there before died young, and she wondered if she had some kind of, health issue with the mold there. But I'm thinking,
Yeah.
in all these homes in the subdivision, what we all have that.
So we identified mold needs three things to live, right? It needs oxygen.
A
So-
food source
Food source,
and.
oxygen, and moisture.
Oh, and moisture.
So if you have visible growth behind tile, an air sample, if moisture is getting to it, that means air is getting to it. So if air goes in, air can come out. So an air test in that bathroom may have helped identify that there was mold in the walls
Okay.
or behind the tile,
The ground would have to, I guess, have a hole in it to.
Somewhere.
Have any air.
somewhere. Yeah.
If they didn't seal their grout.
They didn't seal it?
That would be obvious, you think,
Yeah.
unless you could find it in the vent of the bathroom. I don't know if it would travel in an air
Yep.
one way that way.
Yeah, I would say that the two areas that we find the most concentrations of mold are bathrooms and crawl spaces. It's moist. It's hot. It's humid. Unless someone just takes cold showers, which I don't know why anyone would. So the sampling, now it's important to know that we cannot take a sample if it's raining. Okay, so testing on this, it can take a while. So a day like today would be perfect to go out and pull an outside sample. It has to be dry for 24 hours before we can pull an air sample outside to get an accurate test. All that rain just knocks down all the mold.
Seems impossible.
It is.
24 hours,
24 hours.
wow.
We tried, yeah, so schedule your mold inspections on Monday, because this weekend it looks beautiful. Yeah, we had to go back to property or reschedule 3 inspections because of rain. Yeah. And then the last test that we can do, again, if we have visible evidence of mold, then we can do swab testing. It's just a Q-tip. Right, we get the mold on it, put it in a sealed container, label it, and then send it to the laboratory for identification and testing. So this is a certificate of mold analysis. So this is one of the reports. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this. Maybe you can. But the spore count levels compared to the outside baseline or the control samples. We talked about that. This mold report also is the identification of the mold types that were found outside and inside, and a clear explanation of the results that is easy to understand for clients and for you as a realtor. So that is so that's the cover page stamped. So this particular one, so we have the control sample, which is the first section. Let's see if this have a laser. Probably not.
I think it does.
Oh,
Whenever there's like a red.
it doesn't work on this. Does it work on the screen? Oh, it does. That's cool. All right. So yeah, so right here you can see the control sample, and then the next category. So in the red line, it shows as control, not elevated, not elevated, not elevated. When it's elevated, that's where it's time to get an environmental contractor in there to determine what's causing it and what to do about it. So this is actually considered a clean report. So no course of action was recommended based on this assessment. So then you can see the raw count, the spore count, and then the total percentage. And then we get to the description, and then here is a description of the molds that were found. So the cladosporium, again, it's very common, an important allergen source, both outside and inside. And so just in terms of like the issues that you're having with some of your tenants, this could be something that could be used that says, hey, these are the spores that we identified. These are the common allergies for it. Are you suffering from these types of allergies? I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you any type of advice on that. But you could certainly use that to help them have a better understanding about what the molds are inside those properties. And most of it is going to have the possible allergic potential. So indoor habitat, outdoor habitat. So there's some useful information that is easy to understand. Okay, so when should an agent recommend a mold test? If you're representing a buyer, when should you recommend a mold test?
The inspector visibly sees mold.
Okay.
Yeah, it smells really musty in a room and you can't figure out why.
Yep.
Your client says, I'd like a mold test.
There you go.
They answered
But remember,
the allergy question.
there you go.
Yeah.
Because you asked the question. Okay, that's when you would recommend a mold test, because you asked the right question. And yes, if you walk into a property and it smells musty, and or if it's been closed up for a while, If you have a buyer from Florida, recommend a mold, an air test, a mold inspection. Most of our Florida clients in Houston, Texas, for whatever reason, almost every one of our buyers from Houston, Texas want to have a mold inspection. It's kind of the standard in Texas. Like they do a mold inspection almost with every single home inspection for this reason. So a property has a history of water damage. Okay, as you're researching property to show your clients, if you go to the permit office and a bunch of permits were pulled because a tree fell on the house, do you think that would be conducive to a water event? That's when you would want to recommend a mold inspection. Or if they had polybutylene pipes, we talked about that. We just replaced all the water lines in this house because we had polybutylene. Well, why did you replace them? Was there a water event? If there was, we'd certainly recommend a mold inspection. What about a house that has been sitting empty for a period of time? Yes. We find more homes that have visible mold on the interior walls, homes that do not have air conditioning. What does air conditioning do? It's a dehumidifier. Keeps you comfortable, but it also dehumidifies the house. So homes that were built up to, I think, when did AC really start taking off? Like 70s, 80s, probably. But in older homes, if you open up the closet, you'll see a bunch of mold on homes built in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that's a type of mold. And that's because no airflow got into there and it was a damp condition. So if you're showing a property that no one's been lived in for a while, certainly recommend a mold inspection. And then again, you identified in some of your discovery questions with your client that they have some health concerns. Let's identify if there's mold in this house. Your safety is important to me. So let's find out what's in this house. And then, yeah, musty odor. We talked about that. Present during a walkthrough. Oh, to go back to identifying mold that is not visible. We had a client that did some air testing and it was determined that there were some elevated mold spores in the primary bedroom. And an environmental contractor went out and determined it was under the carpet. It was $20,000 to mitigate. $20,000 to mitigate one bedroom. Nothing was visible in that room that would lead us to believe that there was a water issue. It was determined that during construction and before the carpet got put in, the subfloor was still a little bit wet, didn't have a chance to dry out, and that was conducive to mold. Yep, $20,000. They got some new flooring, right? But someone had to pay for that. Who do you think paid for that? It was identified in the buyer's inspection. Seller paid it. Yeah. And then roofing leaks, plumbing leaks. Again, if you see any indications of water in the house, that would be a great suggestion to have a mold inspection done. Benefits to you, it protects your buyer. It can reduce your liability. Okay. Do you have a list of things, a list of inspections that your clients choose not to do?
Professional services disclosure.
Does everyone have that? Is that like the norm? Is that the standard? Is mold on it?
You can write it in.
I think it's empty box.
Put that in there. If you're not doing it, put it in there. Yep. And it shows added value to you as a proactive agent. You identified they have a history, health history. Let's go ahead and get the inspections done. And then just set those expectations early. Every house is going to have mold. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's scary. Okay, so how do we address those client concerns? Mold. Oh, of course, yeah. Yep.
If you are, if you're renovating, is it better to do the mold testing before? So for instance, we're getting ready to gut a bathroom in a house, very old house. We're gonna completely gut the bathroom, redo it. But there has been water damage in the past. There have been issues. It's a very old house. I don't think it has AC. It might. But would it be prudent to do the mold testing before they rip everything out, or after all the renovation is done before we then market it and start finding new tenants?
That's an excellent question. And as a business owner that likes to sell mold inspections, I would say, yes, we need to go in and do some testing for you, right? But in reality, I was in residential construction for a while, and it's always the unknown that is going to prolong your renovation and your build or whatever that it is. So if you identify during that demolition process, if you identify that there is mold, it's going to slow your project down and it's going to increase your costs. So if you wanted to have a better understanding about what might be behind those walls, then that would benefit you to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe during renovation, like,
Once everything's torn out.
yeah, I mean, if
You're
you're
good.
getting stuff out that you're gonna get rid of anyway,
Right.
get all that out and then test
Yeah.
it and see, hey, is there more stuff we need to remove?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we're doing that at one property because the contractor, he identified it and knew that there was mold. And so we are getting that done before we go any further. But then we have another house that I really haven't thought about until now. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting to think about when to do that, when would be the best. So yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we got called out to do some mold testing, very similar type situation. They identified water was coming in, contractor came in and fixed it. And so we used a mold inspection to determine that there is no longer a mold issue.
How much does
Yeah.
a mold inspection cost?
That's a great question.
Are you getting to it?
I am getting
Okay,
to it.
great.
So that's the myth. Mold is always toxic or a deal breaker. It is not. Okay, most molds are common. And every saturation, I don't think that's the right word, is manageable. It's supposed to be situation. Yeah,
Every saturation.
every saturation. Well, it kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. Every saturation is manageable. That should be situation. There you go. I should have proofread this. Yeah, but it is manageable. So if it's identified, just have that conversation with your clients like, hey, I'm glad that we did testing. Now we have a better understanding about what's happening, and it's not to panic. It's just to clarify. It provides clarity if there is an issue. So this would really help you guys out. Just certainly plan it can. There you go. There's a Florida buyer right there needing a mold inspection. All right. So why hire us? Because we offer mold testing. It starts out at $369. Now, just in terms of testing and setting an expectation with your clients regarding cost, I don't want to say just bring a blank checkbook, but if we get on the property and we start seeing different variations of mold, it's usually charged per sample. So the base fee is $369. And if we find 3 molds that we want to identify, then it's an additional $75 per sample. So the $369 is 3 samples, and those are air samples. So that's the outside sample and then 2 samples inside the house. Now we want to take 1 sample per 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet. So a 2,000 square foot home, we're taking 3 samples. 4,000 square feet, it's an additional sample. Every additional sample is $75. And so what our team does is we take a look at the property. We have a client or agent that asks us to do a mold inspection. We say, okay, it's a 5,000 square foot house. The cost is going to be this, but just plan on an additional 150 because that could include 2 swabs. If we need it, we'll use it. If we don't, we won't. The reports are back within 3 working days. It is a very, very quick turnaround if we can pull that outside sample. So we did an asbestos test today, we got sent out today, so we have the results back on Friday. ProLabs is the same company that does it. So a 3 working day turnaround for the reports. We have a decade of trusted service in the local market. We're not alarmists. We don't do fear-based reporting. Our conversations are really just about being an educator when we're asked to do a home inspection and specifically with a mold inspection. And we're trusted by top agents in the area. So that's why you should hire us to do home inspections. And if it makes sense to do a mold inspection, certainly have that as an add-on.
May
That
I
was it.
ask?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I got confused about the samples. Like
Oh,
you
sure.
said, So 3 samples for if you're doing the air
Correct.
test, right? But, do you ever just do a swab or
Yes.
do you just
Yeah.
assess when you get there what needs to be done?
Yeah. So if we're on site, if we see mold, we just have a conversation with our client that says, hey, we identified some organic growth. Would you like to know what it is?
Mhm.
And then it's $75.
Then it's just a swab.
It's just a swab. Yeah. So you don't have to do the 369 for the air sampling, but that would just lead into a conversation like,
Well, then we know
That-
exactly what it.
yeah. So we can see it here, but I think what would be worthwhile to know is it airborne?
Mhm.
Is it in the ductwork? So we turn on the heating and cooling systems to generate air moving in the house because that helps us identify if it's in the ductwork.
Do your
Yeah.
labs people ever want to see a photograph of some of the crawl space or shower areas of the mold? Does that help them with their testing
Not really.
determination? No? Has to be a physical sample.
That's all they care about. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in our reports, we have the ability to take a picture of it, but it's identified as bedroom wall, primary bedroom wall, or bathroom wall, or yeah, whatever that it is.
What's your
Go ahead.
what's your recommendations on seasonal crawl space venting? As far as opening, closing, timeframes, temperature outside, what do you typically see as being the best?
So it's recommended that it stays open in the spring through the fall, and then the foundation vents get closed from the fall to the spring.
Okay, perfect. There was something more specific than that, but that's where.
Yep. And most of the time they're closed. We do an inspection. So we'll just open them up. Like, all right, fresh air. We need fresh air. Yeah. Yeah. So if mold is found, the next step would be to have an environmental contractor go out to identify what's causing it and what to do about it. And so, so we don't do any mitigation work. There's a conflict of interest if we do that. And so we have partnered with a company that does mold remediation. So if it is found, we'll connect you with a contractor that will go out, assess it, price it, and do the repair work. Yeah.
Local company.
Local company. Yeah. Locally owned.
Those 5 types of mold that you had up earlier, are any or all of those capable of being black mold as we know it, the one that is the most deadly?
No, just the one.
Just the one.
Yeah, but those are the most, yeah, those molds are the ones that we most frequently find in a home and in the report. Yeah. Yeah, good question.
We had a mold report from the buyer. It was a ProLab, and they were asking for mold remediation, and the control was higher than the crawl space. So I think it's important to like review those results,
Yeah,
you know, because if it's higher outside than inside, you're better off inside.
yeah, so they pulled an air sample in a crawl space.
No, they pulled it outside.
Okay.
That was the control.
Yep.
And then crawl space, HVAC inside the home.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
And they said we went 10,000 off for the excessive mold levels.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then we shut down and read the report. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's good that you were able to interpret the
Yeah,
report as
yeah.
being like, this is not an issue.
Read the report. Don't just be like, here's his report.
Yeah,
It's really bad. Okay, it's really bad.
it's really bad, yeah.
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 $10,000 for it, you can do 5 for the world, right?
But yeah, right. Yeah, and we've given ProLabs authorization to have conversations with any one of our clients. And so if they need a follow-up question, they would just call ProLabs. Or you as an agent, if you needed clarification, you would just call them for more information. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Do you mind just quickly teasing your new CE class that you're gonna be doing?
Oh, yes. Does anyone have any issues with septics? Or your knowledge base on septic systems are low? And you could use maybe a little bit of information?
Yeah.
Great, you should come to our CE class, which is gonna be in October, sometime in October,
October 29th.
October 29th.
Offers
Oh.
your lots are?
Yes,
All right.
right
How
here,
long is it CE, so it's 4 hours?
4 hours on septics. You will be encouraged to dress up for Halloween, because I love Halloween, and I may or may not be dressed up. I will be dressed, dang it, yeah. I will be dressed up as.
I'm dressed up as a failed septic tank.
I failed septic tank. Yeah. A roll of toilet paper, yeah. My son was that for COVID,
Over.
yeah, in 2020. He was a roll of toilet paper, yeah. But yeah, so look for more information on that, but it's going to be a great class. We're going to dive into different types of septic systems, why they fail, what to look for. And so it's not the best topic that you would think that we'd want to be talking about for 4 hours, but we're going to try to have some fun with it. Yeah.
I hope you're gonna have a funny section on hilarious stories relating.
We should, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll have
what'd you
some.
find in the
You got time to
filter?
work on
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah, I got plenty of time to work on it. Yeah. Now, the one thing we just started doing, which is kind of cool, is we take aerials of the property itself, so we can actually pinpoint exactly where the septic tank is in the drain field. Because every permit, if you can find one, is inaccurate.
Right.
And so we hand over a really kind of cool report that says, hey, this is where it is, and don't put your pool here, put your pool over here. Yeah.
One more question going back.
Absolutely.
To asbestos in particular.
Mhm.
When would you expect, this is such a leading question, when would you expect a test for asbestos to be in the thousands of dollars?
The test itself, how many samples were taken? It'd be based on the number of samples that were
Hasn't been
taken.
done yet, but
Oh, gotcha.
it's a pretty big house.
We charge $150 per sample
Okay.
for asbestos. Yeah. It's destructive, so we'd have to have authorization from whoever owns the property that allows us to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, there's popcorn ceiling is what we did the sample for today. If we can identify a type of flooring based on some characteristics, it would lead us to believe that it's asbestos. If there's tape around ductwork that's white in color, it's likely going to be asbestos. So we can identify it mostly just visually. But if you need to have something on paper, yeah, it's $150 per sample. Yeah, and a 3-day turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the molds, is there much visual difference between the different types? As far as like, one's red, one's green, one's blue, or does it all look pretty much the same? I know obviously your best way to tell is gonna be the test,
It is.
but with your expertise in seeing it, sometimes do you see something like, that's red, that's clearly not. That's clearly one of the ones that's not as much of an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenge we get into is just the black mold. So, because it can be green. But yeah, there's a lot of common characteristics with a lot of the molds that we see, just because most of the conditions are right in homes for growth. And so, yeah, in our region, it's a short list of molds that we see. That's why those top 5 are the top 5 that are found here in West North Carolina.
So literally, black mold, the type of mold can appear to be green in color.
Correct.
So that's a really good takeaway. I've never put that.
Yeah.
Like an army green, I'm not trying to get into the designer colors, but. just
What's your
curious.
shirt?
I would just test. I would just say, if there's any doubt, if there's a question, have it tested. Yeah, because again, it's peace of mind for your client.
And that would be a straight test, wouldn't it?
It would be a swab test.
Yeah.
Yeah, or tape test, swab test. We use a swab versus tape. Yeah. Yeah, good questions though.
So when you do asbestos tile, the place I was telling you about in Flat Rock.
Yep.
They were not sure if it was asbestos tile. And so in order to be tested, they would have to take out a little 5 by 5 inch piece
Correct.
of a tile. And then how are they gonna patch that? I mean, how would you address that?
We don't. We notify the seller. We ask the seller for permission, or the listing agent for permission to take a sample. We're not going to make any repairs.
Well, how much of a sample on a tile would you take?
We need a 1 inch by 1 inch piece.
Well, that's not too bad. And then it's up to them as to how they were,
Correct.
have a piece of masking tape or something there to.
Yeah.
hide that.
Just paint it white. Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's attic stock, so we can pull material if it's left in a closet or in an attic. And if it's, again, similar characteristics to what we're seeing that's been installed, then we'll ask nicely for a piece of that tile.
And if the popcorn ceiling was put up in 2003, would it not be asbestos?
No.
It'd just be stylistically a popcorn ceiling.
Correct.
Okay.
Are they doing that in 2023? I certainly hope
No,
not.
it's
I was gonna say, I don't know. It's coming back. Let's go. Yeah. Yeah. I know the next, yeah, it's gonna be green toilets and green tubs and green sinks, wallpaper's back. I know. Yeah.
Do we know when they stopped doing the asbestos?
80s. Yeah. Yeah. Now, just in terms of testing, if it's been painted, it is encapsulated. Right?
It's just when you go in there and start.
When you start going in to scrape it to remove it, again, it can increase the cost to remove it if in fact it is asbestos. Yeah, there's additional safety procedures that need to take place for removal. Yeah. Maybe I need to do a class on asbestos.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Or other environmental hazards. Yeah, that might be good.
Stucco.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Push them all together.
Push them all together.
Class.
Look for the CE classes for next year that we're doing.
And
Yeah.
when you do those CE classes, include a property management element, please. Seriously, no, I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah,
We,
yeah,
you know, we go to so many CE classes and it
Yeah.
has no relevance whatsoever to property management. It is all from the sales focus side.
yeah,
And it's really frustrating.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm serious.
That's
You
a
know,
great suggestion.
It's
Yeah.
really, there's so few classes that address things from the PM side.
Yeah.
So-
I'll tell you what, get all your friends together. We'll go out for lunch.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll come talk to you because we actually have a local group that
Oh,
gets
do you? Yeah.
together. And we often have people come talk to us. So yeah, I want to
Yeah.
talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, let's do it. That's right.
You have to be proactive.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. If you guys want this, give me a card and I'll email it over to you.